hello there.
Hi there.
Happy Sunday, friends and lovers, and thank you for joining us. This is 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir. I'm Robert. This is Amy, my delightful and beautiful co-host, as always, and you know who you are. Today is Sunday, October 18th, the 292nd day of 2020. Just 74 days left in the year.
Yes.
There are 68 days until Christmas and just 13, that's right, less than 2 weeks, 13 days until Halloween. For those of you consuming the show on video, of course, you can see we are in the mood.
Yes, we're decked out with many special fun things that are delightful about Halloween.
It's big, bad, and bold. And on this day in history, let's see, in history, the United States took possession of Alaska. October 18th, 1867. The U.S. formally takes possession of Alaska after purchasing the territory from Russia for $7.2 million. You would think that would be a lot of money in 1867, but that was just 2 cents an acre. The Alaska Purchase comprised 568,412 square miles, about twice the size of Tejas, or Texas, for those of you not in the know, and was championed by William Henry Seward, the enthusiastically expansionist Secretary of the State under President Andrew Johnson. Russia wanted to sell its Alaska territory, which was remote, sparsely populated, difficult to defend, because, you know, it was attached to North America and not Russia. Wanted to sell to the U.S. rather than risk losing it in a battle to a rival such as Great Britain. Negotiations between Seward and the Russian minister to the U.S. began in March 1867. However, the American public believed the land to be barren and worthless and dubbed the purchase Seward's Folly and Andrew Johnson's Polar Bear Garden, among other derogatory names.
I like that. Polar Bear Garden.
So this is 1867. Alaska didn't actually become the 49th state of the United States until January 3rd, 1959, and is now recognized for its vast natural resources. 2 cents an acre. You can't beat that with a stick.
And lots of tourism, lots of whale watching, lots of, waving to our folks in Russia.
That's what I hear. Oh, how I miss simpler days of political fun. Today is also National Chocolate Cupcake Day. Now, of course, we're going to tell you go out and have a chocolate cupcake. And I even have a chocolate cupcake. There's your, for those of you watching on video, there's your prop. We haven't, this is not really a chocolate cupcake because it's a Hostess cupcake, and I don't know if there's actually any chocolate or even food in there. But 2 days ago, this week was my birthday, and I was presented with the world's greatest chocolate cake. There you go. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. See, we got the candles going.
Happy birthday, dear Robert.
Happy birthday to me. And I'm going to blow out the candles because I'm going to wish all of you... Nope, I'm not going to say it, so the wish will come true. There we go.
But look at this beautiful, moist, delicious chocolate cake.
You wouldn't believe how good it is unless you go make one of yourself.
It looks just beautiful. It looks more than halfway eaten.
It is wholly from scratch. In fact, posted in the show notes will be a link to the recipe that Amy used, her favorite chocolate cake recipe.
Yes.
So make yourself a chocolate cake. But if you don't have the ingredients on hand, go out and buy one, because today is National Chocolate Cupcake Day. Incidentally, in looking this up, because it really was the biggest holiday that I could find for October 18th, the website, National Day Calendar, has this written. National Day Calendar continues researching the origins of this holiday.
So in other words, we need... what is it called when you're in Wikipedia and you need further sources?
Oh, citation needed.
Yes, citation needed.
Yeah, the provenance of the holiday cannot be found. In other words, this is another one of those ones that somebody made up, probably fairly recently.
Probably by Hostess.
But here's the thing. On April 5th, we discussed my lecture, Weekends and Holidays. And one of the things I said is, do you really need to justify these Hallmark holidays, or should you just enjoy them? Well, you can guess my answer. Today is also Esperanza Spalding's 36th birthday. If you're not familiar with Esperanza Spalding, she is an incredible jazz, fusion, little bit of rock bass player.
Wow.
Yes.
And what a name, Esperanza Spalding.
Esperanza Spalding is 36 years old today. So happy birthday, Esperanza Spalding. Link to her in the show notes if you don't already know her music, especially if you're a bass player like we both are.
Yes.
She's incredible on both the electric bass and the double bass, upright bass. On electric, she usually plays fretless, as you do on an upright bass. Incredible player, but she's also a composer, a singer, creative, inventive. For folks who are into traditional jazz, it might be a little too strange for you, but she's magnificent. So happy birthday. And what we're listening to this week, what else are we listening to this week besides Esperanza Spalding? Well, it was my birthday on Friday. There were a lot of important birthdays this week. But there was a meetup, a whole long meetup celebrating the philosophy professor Leonard Peikoff.
Oh, there he is in his book, Keeping It Real.
Keeping It Real. There you go. Amy is holding up, for those of you who aren't watching, a copy of Leonard Peikoff's latest release. And it's the aggregation of the podcasts that he did into a book.
The Leonard Peikoff Show.
You might wonder, do all those podcasts make a good book? And the answer is yes, they do.
Yes, they do. They're nice and fun. They have different, basically a few paragraphs for as answers to questions in here.
So the Ayn Rand Center UK put together a meetup where many of the people important to Leonard Peikoff's life and who have stories to tell about him got together, and we all talked about Leonard Peikoff. Very cool. Lasted, an hour and a half, 2 hours?
Something like that.
Long time. And you should listen to that. Link is in the show notes. Even if you're not already a Leonard Peikoff fan, the stories are heartening and enriching and funny as all get out, but also, just get you in the feels.
I most loved to hear Kira Peikoff, who is his daughter, and her stories about having him as a father and the kind of approach that he had to parenting, which is that he wasn't going to be an intrinsicist or dogmatist about objectivism with regard to his daughter, and he took a very gentle hand with that and made sure that whatever she wanted to understand in life, in the world, and everything, that was going to be coming from her interest. Her selfish interest, not something that was going to be forced on her. Lots of good stories.
Andrew Bernstein told great stories. Maybe some of the best ones came from Lisa Van Dam.
Yes.
And it was just great to hear, friends and associates and admirers. The big surprise, and what nobody except maybe a few insiders expected, was that it turns out Dr. Peikoff was actually watching this tribute.
Yeah.
And he came on at the very end and said a few things to the group. And even if you don't sit through and you should, but even if you don't sit through the entire presentation, skip forward to the end, listen to Leonard, to Dr. Peikoff. Funny, and it's funny too that a lot of people talked about their humorous stories about Leonard Peikoff and his sense of humor and his sense of style. And that didn't necessarily, for some of us, match up with our experience of watching his lectures. And even seeing him live, where he was clearly a man who enjoyed himself, but you didn't see a lot of humor. And everybody in the meetup was like, one of the things that I remember about him is humor. He comes on the camera and all of a sudden all that humor is there. Very funny.
Yes.
Very clever, very witty. Also, he shares insights and even some of his ambitions at age 87.
Yes, he's writing hours a day, writing nonfiction works.
Yes. In fact, he shared his birthday cake strategy. He's not having birthday cake on his birthday this year. Now that's that big a deal? It is, because Leonard Peikoff's favorite food is birthday cake.
Yes.
Which I've always found to be a charming factum or factoid or bit of fact.
Yeah, and before we get into that, I need to correct myself. He's writing fiction, not nonfiction.
Yes.
Fiction.
Yes.
Yes.
And Amy reminded me, I knew this, but I didn't remember all the details, going back to way back when he quit
70s
smoking.
Or something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was...
Like Ayn Rand, he had been a lifelong smoker. Eventually, it became just...
Yeah, he developed a cough. He was diagnosed with emphysema.
And it became obvious that smoking wasn't good for you.
Right.
It's kind of hard for us to think of that now as having been controversial. And, anybody who was ignoring that must have been evading it, because even the cigarette companies were hiding that by the 1960s or 70s. But it really was becoming a compelling case that if you were a reasonable person, you shouldn't be smoking cigarettes.
Yeah.
As soon as Leonard became convinced of that, and his doctor said, you got to quit, you're developing, breathing difficulties, emphysema, he made up his mind to quit, and his strategy was great. Maybe you should tell, because you remember the details even better than I do.
So basically he went cold turkey. He did go around with a packet of cigarettes in his front shirt pocket, for quite a while there, but he didn't touch any of it. And he decided to replace his cravings with desserts, all kinds of desserts, cakes and pies, but especially birthday cake, which is his favorite food. And he gained 30 pounds. And then after that, it took some time.
Once the cravings for cigarettes were gone, and he had gained 30 pounds, then he just lost the weight because he knew how to do that.
Yeah. So good for him. And now he's 87.
and I love that story for about 10 different reasons. One of them is we've talked about psychology and how free will is not a way to overcome facts of reality, including your own psychology. And Dr. Peikoff was smart enough to know that if he quit smoking cold turkey, the temptations would be enormous and may make it difficult or impossible to do that. But he replaced that gratification with food, his favorite foods, did it in 2 steps, and that way made that possible to do. The one other thing that comes up in this meetup is that Leonard Peikoff announced he's voting this year in the presidential election for Donald Trump. And that was interesting because there are a lot of prominent objectivists like me, for example, who have said that we will not be voting for Donald Trump.
Well, I don't know if we'd call ourselves prominent, but...
Yeah, well, I'm kidding, because we haven't actually announced that. Unless you're on the social networks and you've seen me talk about the election, I have not announced that I'm not voting for Donald Trump. I'm joking. But, Yaron Brook and Harry Binswanger, a number of prominent objectivists. And it's the only prominent objectivist I can think of who is voting for Donald Trump is Andrew Bernstein. And the great thing about that is he had a long conversation, we'll find the link and post to it, with Harry Binswanger about why. And it was great because it lasted a long time. He gave a lot of reasons. It was very nuanced. He said, well, look, I understand all the things that people don't like about Trump and all the reasons they're voting against him. Here's my answer to that. Here's why I think there's still a compelling case. So much more mature than the peanut gallery arguing that's been going on this week.
Oh, love them peanut gallery folks. But bless their hearts. But
some of the folks on the I'll never vote for Trump side have been a little too strident. So Leonard Peikoff apparently has seen folks who said, no objectivist would vote for Donald Trump. So he decided to get up at the end of this tribute and say, hey, I read that, and as soon as I saw that, I realized I had to say, I'm voting for Donald Trump. It's funny, he didn't say much more about it than that, but now everybody who's...
It was not a lecture. It was a birthday celebration.
Well, not only is it not a lecture, he wasn't even trying to convince anybody of anything. But a lot of the folks who are in favor of Donald Trump are taking that like they got birthday cake.
Like they got birthday cake.
Exactly. And hey, if that's
how they want to interpret that, that's fine. I would hope that everybody reasons for themselves and actually, comes up with articulate reasons, at least in their own minds, as to what they're doing, of course.
Well, even more than that, though, I would hope that it should be clear at this point that this is an issue. Unlike a lot of issues, this is an issue in which rational people, reasonable people, decent people can come to very different conclusions. Depending on what you think matters most right now in the political landscape, your hierarchy of values as it affects your interpretation of the future history of the country.
Right.
There is, I'm not going to say there's room for disagreement because that's overly simplistic. It's even more complicated than that.
You came up with a really good point recently, though, and I think that you were attributing it to what Leonard Peikoff had said in past elections was there's two reasons to vote, or how to vote. One, you go for the long-term game.
Long-term strategy.
Or if there's an emergency, if you see that there's an emergency, then you vote definitely for one particular...
Yeah, we'll link to that, the 2006 comments that Leonard made, because at the time he was suggesting people vote for the Democrats.
Right.
And that was also an emergency election. There was a specific reason for that. And if you see this election in that way and you've got a specific reason why you think it's important to vote for Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Joe Jorgensen, none of the above, vote for Amy by writing her name in.
That is right.
Oh, that's what we need, is enough votes for Amy Nasir to get her in the
Vote for me, Amy Nasir, 2020. I will make everything right.
Yes.
Or at least rational.
So that tribute was so worth watching. And it was such a birthday-y week. That Leonard turned 87.
Yeah.
That I turned some other number 7. And some great birthdays on the social networks, and of course Esperanza Spalding's birthday. So I've been thinking about birthdays.
Yes.
And this goes back to a previous birthday. In fact, a birthday episode of 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir, which was April 5th, in which I did a talk called Weekends and Holidays and talked about that on the podcast. April 5th is Amy Nasir's birthday.
Oh, I bet she's a nice lady.
That was a damn good episode. Links to that in the show notes as well. Yeah. That's worth another listen. I'm not going to recap the whole episode, but first of all, it's worth hearing Amy talk on Amy's birthday because she's super charming.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Robert Nasir. I just want to say that whenever I need to cheer myself up, I think to myself that there are, thousands of people perhaps in one particular day that is celebrating a birthday, where they're celebrating their birthday and other people are celebrating their birthday, and everyone's having a lovely time and everyone's reflecting on their lives and enjoying their lives and enjoying the love that they're getting.
Just by the numbers.
Yeah.
In the United States, it stands to reason that there are 1 million people.
Right.
Just under 1 million people.
So it certainly makes
every day.
Yeah, it makes me very happy to know that people are out there celebrating their own lives to the extent that they do and they can, and that they're explicit about it and they have the wisdom to do that. So,
yes.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yep, there are 1 million birthday parties out there. Love, love, love it. I did give some tips for how to enjoy your holidays more. And a couple of those apply to birthdays as much as any of the other holidays I discussed. For example, reset your holidays. We had gotten, Amy and I had gotten, our group, Great Lakes Objectivists, had gotten in this habit of every time we celebrate an event, try to make it better than the last one.
That's a tall order.
It is a tall order. Now, it can be a great strategy, especially in competitive sports.
Right.
But even in just making your life a little better every year. Yeah, make it. But the problem is that every year we tried to make each birthday better. Every year we tried to make the surprise element a little bigger.
Yes.
And even at our monthly glow dinners, when Amy would cook, she would try to make the dinner a little bigger, a little better.
Yes.
I didn't have this problem because I'm a pedestrian cooker. When I cook for Glow, it's, steaks or burgers or chicken or something. But
or
when Amy
cooks, or taco night.
Amy will cook, a goulash. She'll cook a corned beef and cabbage. She'll cook, usually oriented around the holidays. She will cook
prime rib or beef bourguignon or
New Orleans night.
Where we actually brought in
crawdad boil. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the lesson there again, reset, which was reset your expectations every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
Pick a year to say, honey,
yes,
for Christmas this year, we're gonna bring things down a little bit.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean we need to have less of a celebration. We can just choose to focus, 25% of our energy on gifts and presents and 75% of our energy on Christmas carols and going out to events. And
having experiences rather than things.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, one of the things I said was people actually do appreciate personal gifts more than stuff, especially, and this is especially as they get older.
Mm-hmm.
Let folks buy their own, holding up the air quotes here, stuff. Let older folks, and really anybody, but let older folks buy their own stuff.
Yeah.
At my age, at Amy's age, at anybody's age who've achieved some degree of professional success.
Who's over 20.
Anybody who's not a kid. If I want something, I've gone out and bought it.
Yeah.
Or I'm about to. I don't need something practical. So your personal visit, a greeting card, a phone call. You can still, in fact, cell phones can be used to make phone calls.
Mm-hmm.
This is neat. It's one of the apps on your cell phone, is that you can make a phone call with it.
Yeah.
With your voice. It's like a voice application.
Yeah, it's a new application they came out with, new app.
The older people are saying, what the hell are you talking about? And the younger people are all like, I don't use my cell phone for that.
Yes. But before we go on, I must say happy birthday, Mary Eileen.
Oh my gosh.
It's her birthday month. So that's awesome.
Ah, yes. Well, wonderful. I want to say happy birthday to anybody who has a birthday this year.
Yes. Anybody and everybody has a birthday this year. We wish them the best birthday ever.
Yeah, if your birthday is on a day of the week ending in Y, that's an extra special happy birthday to you.
Yes.
Yeah, one of my tricks about surprises, by the way, was that surprises are overrated.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about that a little bit on April 5th, Amy's birthday, because Ayn Rand famously disliked surprises.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are other objectivists who love surprises, and sometimes people would try to surprise her. It was not always exactly what she wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But surprises are overrated. I love a good surprise party. I've thrown Amy a few surprise parties, but this idea that
surprise parties?
Every year has to be a surprise and everything has to be hidden until the last minute, and it's ruined if they find out about something ahead of time. There is no reason to burden yourself in that way. Surprises are great.
Right.
When they're great.
There's an infinite number of ways to mix up, a different kind of birthday or a different kind of experience. So yeah, again, values are pretty much infinite when it comes to creating values and being a productive person who can actually think up something a little bit new, something different. It doesn't have to be such a big blowout event like last year. But I did actually appreciate the fact that Leonard Peikoff, when he had his Zoom call and we were all wishing him a happy birthday, that he surprised us at the very end. Although he didn't say surprise, but that would have been fun. But yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, I love surprises, but...
Oh, Mary Eileen says she met in a month, not this month. So, yes.
Okay.
As in Robert should celebrate all month, so.
I really have been.
Yes.
I'll share exactly how I did that at the end of the episode.
Yes.
And
so keep watching here, keep tuning in here,
yep.
And that shall all be revealed.
Yes. Values are contextual.
Mm-hmm.
So keep these in context. These few tips that I've shared so far. just scratch the surface. If any of that sounds compelling to you and you haven't yet seen our old April 5th episode, it's on YouTube. Mm-hmm. There's a direct link to it in the show notes. Related to that, Amy and I were having a conversation. A friend of ours, Peter, had commented on a video that she had posted. Mm-hmm. And
this was interesting. It was...
Yep. There was a... Well, you should tell the story of the video.
So basically, a man was his car broke down on the side of the road. He had his hoverboard or skateboard or some kind of thing like that, and he had ocean spray cranberry juice that he was drinking. And anyway, long story short, he films this TikTok video with him lip syncing a Fleetwood Mac song, and it's very, very silly, very charming,
on
very
a skateboard
funny
with ocean spray.
Actually skating down a highway ramp, which was even more unusual. So this video became, viral, and everybody loved it. And then people started doing all kinds of copies of it, including the Fleetwood Mac drummer, Mac Fleetwood, so on. Well, what happened was Ocean Spray caught wind of this and bought him a new truck, along with like a year's supply of Ocean Spray, cran apple or whatever cocktail. It is, and. And it was such a lovely, charming story that I posted it, and I said...
such a sweet story. Values unfold in the most surprising and enchanting ways.
Yes, values unfolding. Values cascading. Values actually coming out of nowhere, where things that you didn't expect where they would be. They would just kind of fall in your lap. And
So our friend Peter said, nice story, but why do you say values, specifically values, quotes? Mm-hmm. Seems like a story of a happy accident, which he benefited from. Values typically are things one takes action to attain and keep. I can't see this outcome having been planned for. And perhaps I'm splitting hairs here about word definition. He is referring to the definition of values. And yes. I wouldn't call it splitting hairs, but yes, value is that which one acts to gain and or keep.
Mm-hmm. Straightforward definition.
That is correct.
Yep.
So I responded, because Amy was driving the car at the time, that we, of course you're right, but at the same time, countless values surround us.
Yes.
And the only virtue required is to identify and appreciate them. Mm-hmm. I had mentioned once on the show before, in fact, I think I posted it on the screen or gave it as a post-it note or something. One of the two times I've ever been memed, which was when I said this. We're surrounded by miracles, not least of which is ourself. We are surrounded by miracles. Mm-hmm. And I explained what that meant, which is if you are a decent and rational person,
honest, virtuous person,
living in a division of labor society,
capitalist society, or at least a semi-free society,
you are surrounded by opportunity and things produced by people who aren't you. Mm-hmm. In fact, things you could not have come up with or even thought of on your own, say on a deserted island. Yep. But it's all out there. And as long as you are good and decent and virtuous enough to produce their value equivalent, in other words, as long as you've done enough to be able to trade for them, they just fall in your lap. We are surrounded by miracles, not least of which is ourselves. Which was my answer to Peter's very good inquiry. Value is that which one acts to gain and or keep. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that every value is something we have to work hard for.
Right.
99% of what surrounds us, we've already earned.
Because we're decent, honest, hardworking people who earn our own keep, who earn what we have in life. And just by that virtue, it's amazing the kinds of things that you can look around and say, wow, there's so much to be grateful for here.
Yes.
And
a friend of ours was railing against capitalism recently. Mm. And what I mean by that is that she was observing that life is hard.
Yep.
It's hard when you're young. It's hard to break into certain businesses. There's all sorts of obstacles, which, of course, we would argue are largely a result of cronyism and government regulation. And we can argue about why life is hard, but life is hard.
Yep.
And that's why I think we need to be reminded that you're right. And you got to pay your dues. And some of us have to pay a lot longer and a lot harder than others.
School of hard knocks, yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's never been a time in history when there is more opportunity to do that and succeed and to break through and to achieve a middle class or upper class lifestyle. And I don't just mean in terms of material goods, but just in terms of having a good life and being able to pursue the things you want to pursue.
Right.
Life is hard, but life is also good.
Yes, and I'm going to point out, going back to the whole idea of, well, you didn't actually work to act or act to gain or keep a value. So is it valid? Is it a valid value? Do you call it a value? There's actually a really nice, there's probably several examples in this Keeping It Real by Leonard Peikoff book where he goes through all of these. And, these are people who are calling into his radio show, the Leonard Peikoff Show, which he ran for 5 years, and it was syndicated across the country at the time. And he really made a nice point here. Somebody's asking him about what if you inherited wealth? Does that mean that the money that you inherited, is that something that makes you a parasite, or is that something that is unearned? Is that something that you actually have moral access to, in other words? And basically, his distinction is that there's a difference between the unearned and the non-earned. Potato. But yeah, non-earned is something that might be a little bit more neutral, where it's it's wrong to accept the unearned. But in certain contexts, there's nothing wrong with accepting an inheritance. And of course, if you do, here, it's right here, Robert, if you want to see that. But it's it's something that, yes, you can certainly inherit something. Of course, you can also be the kind of person who wouldn't be able to take care of that money, or wouldn't have the kind of moral grounding to take care of that money, and you would lose it very quickly.
Something funny at the end here. He makes the point that what money can do is enable you to change your form of production. For example, if you're a writer, you wanted to be a poet, and now the money comes in. You can change. You can support yourself now on your inheritance and concentrate on work that doesn't bring in much money. And that's perfectly fine because you're still doing something.
Yes.
It's a good answer. But at the end, he also says, I would be an example of that. I inherited a lot of money from Ayn Rand, but I didn't stop working.
Right.
I was able to do things that wouldn't have paid enough to support me if I hadn't inherited it. I still worked, I still worked, not because I wanted to, but because that gives life meaning. That's a curious sentence at the end there. Not because I wanted to, but because that gives life meaning.
Yes.
Well, I would say if it gives life meaning, then even if I'm not enjoying it, it's what I want to do.
Right.
But it was interesting to me because that's something that I've always known implicitly. Ayn Rand left Leonard Peikoff all of her intellectual property, meaning the copyrights to all of her books, meaning the income that comes in. Her books still sell. She still makes the bestseller lists. And it's interesting because sometimes people will criticize Ayn Rand based on how well her own philosophy worked for her. For example, when she reached her 60s, her lawyer did the paperwork for her to collect her Social Security.
Oh, right.
And it gave people the idea that, well, she must have died poor, and she didn't believe that the government shouldn't do Social Security because she accepted it. And that only makes sense if you are looking for reasons to criticize Ayn Rand. Obviously, she paid into the system. She was compelled by tax law to she had reasons for doing that.
Right.
And it was certainly something that she had earned. Now, we could argue whether, at this point, if you want to abolish Social Security, should you also accept those payments once you reach that age?
Right.
But here's the thing. That was no indication that her philosophy didn't work well for her. She was receiving enormous income from her writing. she was still writing up until she passed away. Her success enabled her to leave Leonard Peikoff the kind of inheritance that meant he never had to work for a living either, even though he did, and he was constantly busy with writing and lecturing and teaching and being part of the Ayn Rand Institute. But it's fun to read him actually acknowledge that, even though it was kind of obvious anyway.
Yeah.
Knowing that he had received the inheritance of not just her material success, but her intellectual property. Right. And that's one of the reasons I love passages like that. You get little insights of things that have that benevolent aspect to them.
Right. And I really do appreciate him saying that productive work, even though you're financially well off, you do it because it gives your life meaning. I would also take it a step farther and say this is something that actually has you engaging with what is real.
Yes.
And that has not just existential benefits, or benefits to your bank account, but psychological benefits as well. Actually feeling like you are part of the world, that you are an actor in the world, not just some kind of spectator.
Right. And back to Peter's observation, it also means that you are eminently worthy of receiving from the bounty that surrounds us, from the values that are so easily available in a division of labor society. It's amazing to walk into a department store with a $100 bill or $20 bill and look at what you can do with that bit of money.
Yep.
There are thousands, tens of thousands of options. Again, of things that you could not have produced yourself without enormous time and expense, and in some cases, no matter the time and expense.
Yep.
We are surrounded by miracles, not least of which is ourselves.
Yep. And I would say miracles that were actually created by human beings and not some supernatural entity.
Yeah, well, that's why I always explain what I mean by miracles is things that are beyond your ability to produce without the division of labor.
Right.
And, at the root, the division of intellectual labor, the minds of men and women. So, I don't have a Post-it note for today. My notes, or rather, I don't have a homework assignment for the day. My Post-it note for the week simply says, today is the first day of the rest of your life, which is not a bad thought on your birthday. It's also not a bad thought on any day ending in Y. It's an old expression, and especially those of us who were around for the hippy-dippy 60s and 70s, it will sound very cliche, but today really is the first day of the rest of your life, or to go back to Anne of Green Gables, tomorrow is fresh with no mistakes in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's the rest of your life look like? What are you geared up for? Are you poised for your next adventure, or to continue the one you're on now? A cliche like that actually does me some good. So that'll be sitting on my bathroom mirror for the rest of the week. You may want to put that one up as well.
Yeah.
So we're keeping it light this week because it's my birthday. And that's about, oh my God, 5 minutes have already gone by.
That 5 minutes went by fast.
Yep. Question for the folks watching at home. Let us know if the lighting looks better than usual.
Yeah.
Not that folks are really watching all that close.
I mean, there's more reflection in the glasses.
Yeah, we have new lighting because Amy gave me a birthday present.
Yes. I went out there and I found
studio lighting. So we're
a vendor that was actually selling studio lighting for a very, very reasonable price.
Yeah, it wasn't terribly expensive, but hopefully it, because we tend to have really hard shadows using the lights that we use because they're bright but they're small.
Yeah.
And this is much more diffuse.
It's diffused.
And as I pointed out before, nobody cares what I look like, but you look good.
Well, thank you. Linda says the lighting is great. Linda Cordair of Quint Cordair Fine Art at cordair.com.
Did you say cordair.com?
I did say cordair.com.
Is that cordair.com?
Yeah, that is the place where you can buy art.
Just making sure.
For all of your spiritual fuel needs.
Just making sure I got that right. Not that I'm pushing the site, but I just want to make sure I spelled that right. cordair.com, right?
Yes.
Oh, good.
That is correct.
So,
we do have a question. I think
yes.
Narendra, I apologize if that's not the correct pronunciation, but if one is not enjoying pursuing values, finding meaning, won't it be boring?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, it would be boring. I think it would be more than just boring. I think it would be, it's the word I'm looking for, crazy making.
It would be debilitating.
Yes.
Because, as a human being, as a conceptual creature, as somebody who has this ability. And,
and I think Narendra is saying this sort of hypothetically, because if you follow Narendra's wall, he has that wisdom already.
Yes.
He's a very wise man.
Yes, he is. Yes.
But it's a great question.
Thank you.
Yes. So, again, since we're doing a short episode, because it's my birthday, I'm going to go eat some more of this chocolate cake.
We have another comment here from Mary Aline.
Yes.
I'm recently retired.
Okay.
You don't have to have a lot of taxable income from IRAs or income-producing investments for your Social Security to be taxed at up to 85%.
Yeah, and I remember this from the fast food days. Folks who know my journey know I spent the first third of my career managing fast food restaurants, and the second third of my career being an IT professional. And back in the restaurant days, I would get folks, senior citizens, who would come work at the restaurant, and I could schedule them for 10 to 12 hours a week. Mm. And I couldn't schedule them any more. And why couldn't I schedule them any more than that? It turned out if they made more than what they would make in 10 hours or 12 hours at the restaurant, their Social Security tax rate or their overall tax rate would then take away a big chunk of what they had coming in from FICA, from Social Security Administration, SSA. And they were, the couple people that I remember, were adamant about this. I mean, they would walk out the door when they hit that mark where they were going to be penalized for making too much money, for working too hard. Oh, you're out there still earning some money. Well, let's hold back some of what we told you we were going to give you back. So, yes.
I mean, and tying that into the psychological and philosophical and flourishing benefits of productive work.
You're extra ambitious? Oh, well, then you don't get as much.
We're going to penalize you. And that's not nice. That hurts, and that doesn't help anybody.
Yeah. Maybe we could do a whole episode on FICA and Social Security, the SSA, and whether is that really your money you're getting back, or is it really just an entitlement because it's coming off the backs of the people who are still working right now? We could have that debate, but we won't, because this show ain't about that kind of stuff. But that's absolutely right, that unfortunately the people who are rewarded most are not the people who do the most, and that's not a good thing. It's not a good scene. It's a bad scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not a good scene. It's a bad scene.
So sorry, Mary Aline, that is something that you are dealing with. In 10 years from now, I may be dealing with that.
Yeah.
Although maybe not, because our patrons, our Patreon supporters are so generous.
Yes, thank you.
That 10 years from now, I may well be earning a living just from having the honor and pleasure of talking to you good people. So with that said, I don't have any homework for this week, but I will remind you that show notes will be posted online 5 to 10 minutes after the show. Past episodes are available at youtube.com. That's where you can watch this episode, the ones that came before it. That's where you can like and share these episodes. Get more of the word out there. We had some great commenters this week. We had the numbers go up a bit this week, which I asked for. So everybody who was part of that, thank you.
Yes.
Mark in particular, Mark in Westland, Michigan, made a valiant effort and even had some suggestions.
Yes.
We'll be making some playlists of related episodes so that you could listen to a playlist. Start it playing while you're doing your laundry or housework or yard work or whatever it is you're doing. And not only would you help get our view counts up, but it could be fun to listen to theme-related episodes. You could do, the episode on Benevolence and Optimism at the same time. You could do, the Weekends and Holidays episode and the related subjects. So we'll be putting those together. Thank you, Mark, for that suggestion. If you do want to support the show materially, as several of you already do, and we love you for it, patreon.com/Robert Nasir. or send me a message on Facebook. I have a few folks who prefer to use our email address to send via PayPal. And if you have any questions or comments, or especially if you have any suggestions for future episodes, because my kind of back pocket list of episode subjects is getting low, and I'm always coming up with more, but it would be great to know what you would like to hear us talk about.
Yes.
Go to the 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir Facebook group, or leave them right on my wall, and let us know, what do you think we should be talking about as we come up on the holidays?
Right.
With just, what did I say it was, 13 days until Halloween, 74 days until Christmas.
Wow. Yes.
I got to buy the rest of my Christmas presents.
You haven't got done your
I have
Christmas
not finished
shopping
my
done,
Christmas
huh?
shopping yet. I've only got 3 or 4 items already.
Oh, good.
Yes.
That's excellent.
Well, you know that because you've already asked for some of them.
I don't remember what these are.
And the fun thing is she doesn't remember what she asked for, and I love that. Speaking of surprises, some opportunities fall right in your lap.
And enjoy them.
Enjoy them.
Because you have earned them, in a sense, for sure.
It's like voting. Do it early and often. Buy those presents.
Yes.
So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everybody.
As always, we wish you success. We wish you happiness. We wish you flourishing. We do wish you the best of birthdays, and even when it's not your birthday, as long as you're willing to pay the price later in a little bit of harder exercise, have that birthday cake. And as always, we wish you love.